Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are tuning in from. Welcome to the TAFO, the Truck Around and Find Out podcast, where we discuss some fun and hot topics surrounding the trucking industry, safety, community, and kind of our lives here in Northern Colorado. We're your hosts. I'm Keith Couch with Rush Truck Center, Greeley, Colorado, and I also have Rocky Mountain Peterbilts on YouTube, and we have Ryan Byers, Front Range Compliance and DOT University.
Hey, Keith, how's it going today?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm glad to be here and recording again. And we also have a special guest today, Keith. We got Lonnie Schneider. So with Southern Tire Southern Tire Mart, Downtime Defender, and you're also the former chairman of the Maintenance Council, right?
Correct.
With CMCA, Colorado Motor Carriers Association,
Yeah,
which,
correct.
if memory serves me, Lonnie, you were sitting in that chair for quite
a
some time.
while.
Some time. So you decided to take a little reprieve, step away from that a little bit this year. I noticed Iron Buffalo, what is his name? He stepped into that role.
Austin White.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. And you're also pretty involved in the Top Tech, Colorado Top Tech competition.
Correct. I've been the chairman for it for 11 years now.
11 years. Goodness.
Yeah.
Holy moly. It's quite the competition, and we're gonna dive into the ins and out of that competition kind of as we go. But tell us a little bit about what you do, Lonnie, and kind of your past, your background.
Well, I mean, I've been in the industry over 40 years, so telling my age here a little bit, but I sell tires for Southern Tire Mart. That's my full-time job, and then I also have Downtime Defender, which I do the maintenance training that kind of coincides with what you do, Ryan, excuse me. You do all the other training, and then when it comes to the maintenance, I kind of kick off at that side of it as well. So I do brake training, electrical, wheel end, kingpin, pretty much all that it does with maintenance side of the training facilities. We got a training class for it now.
Nice. Very nice. So I know the two brake classes. I've sat through both of your brake trainings a couple different times, and I've had Luke also attend your brake trainings, and I like to sit through them. I always tell people I like to go through them every 2-3 years for a refresher. But to be honest, with the spread of time, 5 to 6 years, it's great to sit back down. The biggest thing I think I've noticed about your training, especially on brakes, is I swear every time I sit down and go through that again, it's like I hear some of the stuff for the very first time. Even though I've been through it, I've been through a Bendix class, I've been through all kinds of federal training, but this is it's one of those topics, and I guess there's probably so many moving parts and components in there, and you hear it from a technician mindset instead of a regulatory mindset, right? So you're kind of getting that different view of it, and I can't recommend your training enough. I try to. I get calls all the time to do the brake training, and I did one once. I think I told you a long time ago. I taught one for somewhere up in Boulder, and I put on the big brake class, and I walked away from that, and I don't think I even charged them for the training. I was outside my realm. It's very much somebody that has that technical experience and mechanical experience to really teach that. But it's a really phenomenal class. And you said you're also doing kingpins, wheel ends, really anything maintenance kind of related.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, we've expanded to that. And, and the way we teach it, we give a handout because everybody needs a handout for refreshers, for bullet points that go with Appendix A that they need. But we teach it from like you said, a mechanic standpoint. And I teach a lot of it from my history. And what happens, so that's why you see different things the way I teach it every year, because something comes up different, I bring it into my training parts because don't want people learning the wrong way like I did a lot of the times. If I can help them learn the right way the first time, I feel I did my job when I do my training.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I can tell you if there's a mistake to be made in DOT rules and regulations, I've probably made it through the years. I think that's how we all kind of make our way through this. I ask my classes all the time. I'm like, all right, is everybody clear as mud on this? It's DOT stuff. So it seems like the waters are always murky until you finally start to grasp it and things start to clear up. But in the maintenance, it's amazing how much confusion we still have.
We still have a lot of it, yeah.
Yeah, and old school ways and old school thoughts and shops, and I'm sure you've discovered that there's a lot of, well, I've been turning wrenches for 40 years, and you're like, okay, well, I understand, but let's fine tune that knowledge. Like, you might be an absolute genius when it comes to making these vehicle repairs, but we just need to make sure that you have your knowledge tied around the rules, the regulations, and these components. So overall, really, really fantastic. So with your brake training, that's the one that I really know about that you do, and I try to kick you over referrals for that training. Lonnie, do you teach that class just here in Colorado? Is that something that you would expand, or you do?
We're starting to expand and move out of town now, so
Okay.
we can do that. It takes a little bit because we have to travel by. We can't fly because we have so much hands-on stuff that we take with us.
Yeah.
And so we have to drive, but we are expanding out of the state. We're going to go up to North Dakota and do some training, and Texas is on the books here later this year as well. So
That's great to hear. That's absolutely great to hear. It's there's just not a lot of options to get the training and like the equipment that you have to have. Yeah, it's a complete chore and get ready to go and set those classes up. When you do like the wheel ends training, is that the same way? You got the gear and the equipment, so you basically are going to have to load up the trailer and get ready to go. I know a great DOT compliance company who can help get that side of it set up for you. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah, no, we had to get a larger trailer that we're outfitting now because our training stuff has grown so much that we need other things. And I mean, we've added a new brake class since you've been there, Ryan, that we are actually doing a 100% hands-on where we take the whole wheel end apart, and we have 6 stands now, and we have the guys put it back together, and we watch how they do it and see if they do it correctly.
Wow, that sounds exciting. So hands-on, actually getting some mechanical experience, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's going to be great. So yeah, I'd love to hear that. I get a lot of feedback from people that have been through your training, and everybody absolutely loves it, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's absolutely phenomenal training and that type of thing. The hands-on, how long is that training?
Well, we haven't had one complete class yet, but we did a test run, and it was right at 3 hours.
Okay.
And it was, we only had 6 people at the time doing it. So if we have more than 6 people, it could take longer because we're going to have different guys do different parts of it. That way we can expand to get more people in the class because everybody wants more than just 6 people. It takes, all the places have more than 6 mechanics anymore because it takes so much to keep everything running. Yeah. And they try to get everybody certified and knowing what they're doing. And, like you said, everybody's been doing it for 40 years. And I love having the kickback when I get done that the guy says, man, I've been turning wrenches for 40 years and I learned something new when I come to your class. So that makes me feel good and makes me realize that, hey, I'm finally teaching, and that's my pride. I love to do that.
Yeah, that is a really, really rewarding feeling for sure. So Lonnie, with the disc brake class, that one is also right around 3 hours, right? Somewhere an hour. Yeah. And then the drum brakes, the good old brake, then still active, but that one's also running about 3 hours.
Yeah, 3 to 4. 3 to 4. It's starting to get a little bit longer because the questions are getting so much more in depth with what people are running into because there's these, the brake check weeks and stuff like that, and people are seeing the fix-it tickets that are like, I have no idea what they're talking about, so I'm seeing a lot more questions and participation of getting the techs involved to say, hey, I need help on this. And so the last few have been pushing closer to 4, but that's good. I mean, that gets the techs involved. I know that they're wanting to learn that way.
Okay. So with that, we've seen a lot of with the enforcement, state of Colorado bringing in the brake checker, the
reverse dyno.
Yeah, that whole system. And you're seeing probably them engage a lot more companies doing the brake checks, as they pull in that PBBT,
right,
that performance-based brake tester, which, basically puts the truck up on that rack and tests the brakes and determines, where all the the different braking efficiencies are and that kind of thing. So a lot of shops are probably getting some reports from their roadside enforcement from those testers and saying, oh man, we just quite don't know how to answer some of this stuff. So we need to get some training. I think that's good for you, good for the industry.
Yeah, it is. It's very good. It brings out, makes me feel safer running down the road when I know people are wanting to learn to get these big trucks to be able to stop, because these cars on the road, they don't understand that how big and how heavy these trucks are, and they just want to pull in front and slam on the brakes. And so it helps get everybody safer down on the road. We all have kids and grandkids that we want to protect, so that helps it a lot. So the new things that's coming out with the federal motor carriers and all this stuff, it's a good thing, and I feel proud to be part of that to help get the understanding up to where it needs to be.
Yeah. So with everybody that you're training, do you recommend your training mostly for technicians? I mean, it sounds like that, the hands-on side of it, where they're taking it apart, that's really geared toward technicians. But the regular just brake knowledge and that, do you see any companies putting drivers through that type of training?
I'm not seeing as many drivers right now, but I wish I could see more drivers. But I am starting to see the shop foremen and the maintenance foremans and directors and stuff like that starting to come to the classes, because they're seeing these fix-it tickets and they're not understanding what's going on, and they got to sign off on that ticket, and they're like, well, what does this mean? You know what I mean? So starting to see a lot more of the upper echelon, as you would say, coming to the classes so they can understand what it is, and that's a good thing. And I try to cater, when I start my class, I ask everybody what it is so I can cater towards all that's there. I mean, there's different aspects of who needs to understand more this and that and stuff like that. So,
yeah. I feel like since the automatic slack adjusters came into fruition, back in 1994, the FMCSA has done an absolute horrid job. I think CVSA's tried to step in and put a little bit more. On their website, they've got a little bit more information, about brake checking and some steps and procedures. But I just feel like the industry's kind of been left in this big void, which is kind of where we have so many struggles of industry really kind of understanding what they're supposed to do with these newer brake systems. Right now you're getting the questions, how to deal with the disc brakes, and questions about, the brake adjustment and that type of thing. So, drivers, it's to such a degree, Lonnie, where, I'll have a group of drivers and I'll ask them when's the last time they've climbed underneath their vehicle to do a brake check. And they're like, well, it's too dangerous. Go under the truck. That's not my job. That's the technician's job. And for goodness sakes, anybody that's got driving experience, and maybe I'm dating myself a little bit, 1994 doesn't seem all that long ago, right? But I guess it was. Luke's sitting there looking at me. Yeah, you can put your fingers down. He's counting them out loud out in silence over there.
It's going to happen.
It's been a long time. But with that same thing, with those fingers you were just holding up there, Luke, to show me how many years, how many decades it's been, why has we as an industry not figured this out in 30 plus years, Well,
I think it's because, we haven't had anybody that was willing to get up there and teach like we do, Ryan. Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing. Everybody's been afraid of it or don't want to dedicate the time to do it. I think that's probably the biggest thing is nobody wants to say, hey, I'm going to jump in feet first and I'm either going to sink or swim and make it happen. And, just like you, and we talk about it all the time. When we started, it was tough. We didn't have clientele to keep us going. And I'm still growing my business. Yeah. Yours has grown a lot more because you've been 100% into it and I'm not 100% there, but it's getting to the point where I'm getting closer and closer all the time. So,
good to hear.
And I think that's the biggest thing is who wanted to jump in and dedicate the time to teach the people.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're definitely onto something. And, just the sheer fact, when we talk about the automatic brake adjusters, one of my slogans that I try to push and hoping that it would catch is stop the adjustment.
Exactly.
We got automatic slack adjusters to stop the adjustment. And Keith and I have talked about it on some of our past podcasts. We've talked about some brakes and some things like that. And, we still just have people going and doing the manual adjustment on automatic slack adjusters. And one of the things that I absolutely loved about your training is with your device, your equipment, is you show the technicians just how quickly if you do a manual adjustment on an automatic slack, just how quickly it ratchets right back out where it was at.
Exactly.
And I tell everybody it's about 10 brake presses and it's right back out. And then I hit them with the follow-up statement, and with the question, I ask them, how far does your driver get down the road by the time he presses those brakes 10 times? And they just kind of sit there, and I hit them with another follow-up that says, are they even out of your yard yet?
Exactly.
That kind of thing. And
Yep.
here you guys think, that we're fixing the brakes, but for all intents and purposes, you
Just
didn't, not
Band-Aiding
even
it.
anything. You didn't,
Yeah.
you didn't fix it. You didn't do anything. He goes down the road and his brakes are still
Out of
going to be in
adjustment.
the exact same adjustment. So,
Yeah, and that's one thing. The automatic slack adjusters is most of the biggest thing in my classes is nobody knows how to check them. Nobody knows how to know whether they're working or not. They've never been taught that, hey, I can test this to make sure it's working.
yeah.
Nobody understands that, and so that's the one thing that I'm able to teach is, hey, this is why you need to do it, and this is what's the brains of the system, So if you mess up the brains of the system, it don't take long before the brains quit working, and next thing we don't have brakes, and then we're at 25%. We're out of service. We're sitting at the port waiting for a tow truck.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just in your experience, when you see the brakes that are not adjusting, what do you kind of feel in your experience and all the years that you've been doing this? What do you think the biggest cause is for those automatic slack adjusters to, as they start to age and they don't have that same reset, so they kind of get closer and closer to that reset being closer to the out of service, and to the brake measurement? What's typically the cause to see those brakes that are not resetting back to where they should be?
Well, I think the biggest cause was when we have these brake check weeks, and then they go back and their boss says, hey, we're having a brake check week coming up. You need to make sure the brakes are all in good standings. And the mechanic goes, okay. And he goes out and readjusts the slack adjuster. And every time you back it off and try to readjust it, the gears get knocked down, and that's what causes the gears to go out of service. And, I've had one company that had a issue with the OTE, and they couldn't figure out what the problem was. They were adjusting their automatic slack adjusters every time the truck left the yard. And, every time you adjust, you just wear those gears down, gears down, gears down. Next thing you know, it's just free movement. There's no containment to hold it in where it needs to be for adjustment. So, if FMCSA, they changed that rule 7 years ago, Brian, right? Something like that, where if you have to adjust an automatic slack adjuster, you have to show what was wrong for the unit to go back into service, because that goes back to where you talked about the 10 brake applications is back out of adjustment. So I think that was a good thing that they did for that. But I think the problem is there was nobody to explain to them why this was being done that way,
Sure.
And so that's one of the big things on my key points in my classes is this is why, the only time you should touch that is if there's a problem that you're having somewhere you're in out of service control. But if you check it and see where it's in adjustment or not, see whether it's working.
Sure.
And that's the big thing. Nobody does that.
Yeah.
They don't understand.
Well, also, and one of the things that I talk about is that the slack adjusters, in a way, it's communicating with you. And I mean, just as in kind of relation to that, if we look at a hydraulic brake system, when we're looking at that tank but on the master cylinder, and you see when it's brand new, the fluid is full, and then after several years, that fluid kind of goes all the way down, and some new guy might say, well, it's leaking. I'm like, well, if it's leaking, you wouldn't have any pressure. It'd be it'd also be empty, and you'd have signs of the leakage. I said, but as those brake pads thin, that fluid goes down in a way that tank is communicating, and it is saying, hey, I'm due for a brake service. Yep. And so I kind of look at the automatic slack adjusters the same way. If you like, for instance, if we got a Type 30 brake, and it's supposed to be at a standard measurement out at 2 inches is the DOT cutoff for that. As it's getting close to 1 7/8 inches, it'll pass a DOT inspection. But the preventative mindset should be like, hey, this device, if it's not ratcheting back in through all my inspection procedures, the preventative mindset of a technician should kick in and say, it's communicating with me saying, hey, I'm due for a brake service. Something is not working. It could be the slack adjuster, but it also could be something as wear on a bushing or a roller or something inside the actual brake. And that's one of the things that I really have enjoyed about your training is how you dive in and you can show exactly some of how those components were and that type of thing. And so, yeah, I think as a whole, as an industry, that would be one of the things that we could try to really get the industry to do a little bit better on. And I think you're doing a great job at that.
I appreciate that. And the big thing is, we've got lax on how we do maintenance on stuff. And we just think a brake job is we throw new shoes on it, throw it back into service. And there's a lot more to a brake job than that. That's why, the training class is 3 to 4 hours long, because there's all these other components that they don't even think about, because they've been doing it for so long and it's just, needs a brake job. They throw some shoes on it, maybe throw a drum at it and put it back into service. And all these other parts are out of compliance they wonder why it don't stop like it used to stop.
Oh gosh, I could talk to you for an hour just on the drum problems that I see out there with the ridges and the grooves and the wear and the term dynamiting the brakes, which whoever invented that phrase, I'd like to just bring back public caning,
you go.
That kind of
Exactly.
thing. So one of the things, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I kind of prepped you on it before we started recording today, but when I teach the periodic inspection, the short section that I do on brakes and that kind of thing, which I feel like I warm them up and in that training, and I tell everybody you have to have both qualifications, periodic and brake, and I do provide them the form, but I tell them there's a separate training that they really need to go through to get their brake certifications and qualifications. So one of the things that when I talk about in Appendix A, and we're talking about Part 396, Appendix A, Section 1, the brake systems, when you get to specifically paragraph 5, and that's just before you get to the chart where it talks about all your different brake measurements in there, I feel like there's a correction that needs to be made in that statement where it talks about, it says the maximum push rod or the push rod stroke must not be greater than the values given on the tables below. So we're talking about those brake tables. It says any brake stroke readjustment limit will be rejected, and the stroke must be measured with the engine off, the reservoir pressure, and it says 80 to 90 PSI with the brakes fully applied. So what I talk about when they're doing their brakes, based on the law, when they're checking their brakes with that full brake application, that it should actually be between 90 and 100, and I base that off of the fact that CVSA changed that in their inspection procedures for the enforcement divisions to check between 90 and 100. Essentially, it can be higher than that, but when they say the brake's fully applied, we shouldn't be applying less than 90% of pressure or 90 PSI of pressure to those brakes, so we can see what that overall movement is. And as I brought that up with you, you had some interesting thoughts also on that 90 to 100 statement. So I guess what are your thoughts on that with me asking that correction of 90 to 100 instead of 80 to 90?
The reason why I see they went up on that is because we've got a lot of disc brakes now, the newer trucks, Keith, you can attach to this, that they come with steer brakes, have to have disc brakes on them and stuff like that, So with the disc brakes coming out, we don't see the stroke measurement like we do with drum brakes because it's all internal inside of the caliper. Mm-hmm. So the roadside guys, they have no way of really looking at stroke like they used to for years and years and years. Right. So that's where that reverse dyno comes into place. And so what they're doing is they're trying to find how much pressure it takes to stop that vehicle. So you're looking at the best performances. The harder you push on the vehicle, it'll give you a higher percentage of that knows whether you're stopping that dyno or not.
Okay.
So if you're at 60 PSI, 70 PSI, like you're normally running down the road, the problem is that ain't telling whether you can stop that truck in an emergency situation or not.
Okay.
So that's why the higher PSI comes into play, because that's where tells you where that truck is really safe to be on the highway, to be with all the other vehicles so they don't get into an accident because they didn't have brakes.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I appreciate your thoughts on that. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to tell everybody to make that correction. Appendix A has several several
corrections that need
areas.
to be
And
made. Yeah.
as you know, it used to be in the very back of the book, and then in 2022 they moved it to Part 396. And I was actually kind of excited because I was like, well, maybe they'll actually remember to correct it and add stuff to it. But it doesn't seem like they're getting too good. There's a good handful of about a half dozen corrections that I can just think of off the top of my head. But
Right.
we're not going to get into all those now. So fantastic. Well, thank you for that. Lonnie, before we jump into the skills competition, I do have one more question I wanted to kind of talk to you about, and that is going to be for tires. And you are the foremost tire expert that I know, with your experience there with Southern Tire, Mart, and your past experience. But I wanted to bring up the Federal Register, and I kind of had this set up for Keith and I to talk about, and I didn't get into it yet. It's kind of been on my desk here since it came out, and I was figuring out a good way to kind of bring this up. And then you and I started talking about Top Tech, and I thought, wow, this is a good time to bring this one up. But in February, the Federal Register published its final rules in regards to the tire load ratings, and that's going to be for regulation Part 393. 75 under tires. And essentially what they did was they added a paragraph to it, paragraph J, that says the requirements of paragraph G and H of the section shall not be construed to require manufacturers to add any markings in the sidewall of a tire. So essentially what they're saying is that the tire is not required to have a manufacturer's load rating. And I found that rather interesting, especially since the CVSA out of service criteria, and I've got them flagged here in the 2026 out of service criteria for all tires, both steer and those that are found not on a steer axle, that is an out of service condition if a motor carrier were to overload the load rating. So as you know, anybody with experience in trucking, if you get stopped by somebody who's got scales, if your tire's overloaded, they're going to put you out of service. So what do you know about this, and what are some of your thoughts?
Well, it's a new rule that I think it's more for the lower tier tires manufacturers that are afraid to, put too many markings on because they don't understand it, because some of these tires are built overseas, so they don't understand our regulations in the United States.
So you're talking about China tires.
China tires. Exactly.
China bombs.
China bombs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Because the way they build them is they have a mold and it goes from factory to factory to factory, depending on who gets the quote, who's cheaper, who can build the tire faster and cheaper than the next
So somebody
guy.
owns that mold.
Yes.
And then they just contract these factories.
Exactly.
And if somebody comes in cheaper, they pull the mold.
Bring it to the next
Okay.
person. So that's why you'll see the different markings in different places on the same tire. It may say that it's a ling long, and you look at it one time and the marking's going to be here, and then the next time it's totally 180 degrees off. That's because it went to a different factory.
Got it.
And so I think that's why they did this, is because, we're all tires efficiency. We want to spend less money on anything that we can. What's the first thing anybody ever calls and asks me about tires? Do you have it? And what's the cheapest one you got? Kind of thing. But the regulations are still out there. It needs to be known how much weight that tire can handle. I mean, Keith, you can attest to
Yes.
this. When you build a truck, depending on the axle, it depends on what tire is going to go on it. So I think what's going to have to happen here is the regulatory agencies are going to have a list of tires from every manufacturer and tell what its rating is. And I think it's going to put the monkey back on the regulatory side of it all. And I think it's going to get missed. If you really want my honest opinion, I think some of these guys are going to go, I don't have time to be carrying around this regulatory book that tells every tire manufactured in the United States, China, Vietnam, everywhere that they're built, that's going to say, hey, this is the weight rating of these tires. And I think it's a big mistake, if you want to be honest.
Well, I tend to agree.
Yeah.
I can't help but feel that, or to think that with this, the manufacturing standards because they put it in a rule that now you don't have to have it, that other manufacturers, here within our own country, since it's specifically worded, it's not required to be on there. My thoughts are people going to start pulling that off? Are we going to start seeing tires without that load rating on there, especially since it's not required to be on there.
You know, the major brands here in the United States, they've said no, they're going to keep building them the same way.
Okay.
But
I would think from a liability standpoint, if you're a decent tire manufacturer, you're going to want that on there.
Agreed.
Because if I got a 20,000 pound steer axle, like on a heavy haul truck, got two tires rated at 10,000 pounds and one blows, well, you know, it was rated at 10,000. You can show the engineering per the tire that this was all done versus don't put it on there.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
yeah, I like I said, I just think it's something about, you know, because we import so many more tires now than we used to, just because, you know, we were pushing everything out of the country.
But
Even some of the major brands were going out of the country. So I don't understand it.
It doesn't make us safer.
No, it does not. And it's one of those things that I really don't know why they did it. I have no idea.
Well, you know, we could technically read the 4 pages of the registry to figure out the history and the actual whys. I'd rather just speculate for the purpose of today. Because I don't like it. Because the final rule comes out, it's going to be published in 393.75, and you know who's going to revert back to see what the discussions were. We're just going to start to see actions taken. I can't help but feel that part of it is for enforcement, to prevent enforcement from writing up a violation for somebody who did buy one of those lower tier tires, that doesn't have the rating. And I think that is probably what it's going to really gear into, what the reason of why they wrote this up. But again, being former enforcement, seeing the out of service criteria, I'm like, well, then how in the world are we supposed to know what it is? What is that tire truly rated at? It sounds like you said, hey, we could put together a book that says all the different tires. I can only imagine what that thing would look like.
I mean, maybe we ought to just call them round and black. As long as they're round and black, we're good.
Round and black, and they got air in it, right?
Well, I mean, being with Southern Tire Mart and some of the other larger tire agencies, I think we're going to stand on our laurels and we're going to get the right tire with the right before we even sell it, because that's a liability for us just as much as it is for the manufacturers. So we're going to keep our laurels high and the standards high, that we're going to make sure that they are the right tire on the right truck when it comes in and sees us.
That's fantastic. And Lonnie, we'll get your contact information out there. We finish this up, but thank you. I think that's great information. Let's talk about the skills competition. So Top Tech competition is going to be coming here in Colorado, and it's at Lincoln Tech, right? Down in Denver.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
And that is going to be on April 25th. Did I get that date right?
Yep. You got the date right.
I meant to check with you before we got started, and I was like, I think that was the 25th. So perfect.
No, you're perfect time. Yeah.
So we've got that going on. Overall, pretty big event. How many competitors do you have?
We max out at 66 competitors.
Okay.
And right now I have 50 already signed up.
Okay, so
I got 16 more openings that I can do to fill before I have to tell them, hey, better get earlier next year, kind of thing.
Okay, well, let's see if we can help get you a few more people signed up. If there's only 16, I would say people better hurry up and get signed up, because overall, and I've participated before, that kind of thing. With me, the problem is a lot of the time to get to do it. I'm spread pretty thin, but overall, it's a super, super impressive competition. So can you tell us about it?
Well, I've been chairman of it for 11 out of the 13 years. And we've grown from 6 stations. Now we're up to 11 stations plus the written.
Okay.
So we've went from a half-a-day competition to, we're almost a full-day competition. We start the competition at 8 o'clock in the morning. The guys go through a 1-hour written test, and then we get into the hands-on skills portion of it, where we have 11 stations. And the 11 stations go from anything from engine diag, wheel end, R-piece, anything that you could think of that needs to be out there that you would work on for a good, well-rounded mechanic. And the way I like to sell the Top Tech competition, it's a competition. It's here to see who's the best in the state. You get that bragging rights. But it's to learn. Because if you go and try this competition and you find a station that, man, I just don't know anything about, we have our chairman there that answers questions after the competition and help, and we teach you through our maintenance council stuff if you come to them, so you can understand those. So we're helping teach the mechanics and their weak points is what the big thing about it is. That's how I try to sell it, because most guys go, I don't want to be in a competition. My peers are going to be there, and if I don't do good, I'm going to, get harassed and things like that. But if it's a learning point, and the next year you come back and you've learned from all that, you keep growing, you may win the competition.
Yeah, you win or you learn.
Win or you learn, exactly.
Yeah.
And
absolutely. I think that is absolutely phenomenal. To get involved in the learning experience is so critical. And, so you get participants, like, who all do you have participating? Is it like, is it
it's open
designed for everybody?
It's open for anybody that's a mechanic in the state of Colorado. I mean, and then if it's a mechanic that's in a local state next to us that does not have a state competition, they're invited as well.
Okay.
I mean, we have both a professional category and a student category. I mean, they all compete right next to each other, but we grade them differently or score them differently, and they have their winnings and the professionals have their winnings. I mean, I have guys from North Dakota State College, the mechanic college up there, that are coming down for the competition. Last year, one of their guys won the student competition. He was number one. It was from North Dakota State. So we have students as well as professionals. Anybody can come. We're not picky on who you are, what it is. I mean, put your $60 in the pool. If you win one of the stations, you get a $100 gift card and a plaque. You get your money back, and you had a great experience. I mean, we come, we give you breakfast, we give you lunch, we have awards, we have a bunch of handouts, door prizes with tools and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's not just a competition where if I don't come, I don't do anything. It's a loser of a day. We try to make it where it's family friendly oriented. Your family can come watch. I mean, they can't interact with you while you're competing, but you can have your family there the whole time. They can be walking around watching what you're doing and see the competition. So we encourage it to be a all-around good, fun day.
Yeah, I think it has been, from what I've seen in the past. I mean, it's exciting. The family gets excited. And just overall the event, the bragging rights, and the internal camaraderie that I saw amongst the techs that were there, because they were also supporting each other. It wasn't a whole bunch of crap talking and stuff like that. I'm sure there's a little bit of that happens amongst peers, but overall it was really kind of looked to me like the state of Colorado was trying to breed the winner to take what they're doing here in such a good tight competition to that national level, because isn't that something also the winner here?
That's what we try to do, is we try to mimic the national competition as close as we can without being, because national competition is 2.5 days long, so it's a bigger competition. But we try to mimic everything that they're going to see there in a shorter version so that they're prepared for it. Because if you win the competition in Colorado as a professional tech, we send you and a spouse or your significant other to the national competition to compete. All expenses paid through us, Top Tech and CMCA.
Where is that?
This year it's in Pittsburgh again.
Okay.
It's either Pittsburgh or North Carolina. They kind of bounce back and forth, and every now and then Orlando gets put in there as well. But those are usually the three places that they have it, and they just kind of do a rotation.
Okay. Wow. So that's a big deal. I mean, that national competition, that's some stiff competitors. And that overall, I would imagine, it's a pretty big event.
It's a real big event. I mean, the guys that go and they, if you win, we talk about winning $100 in a plaque here, you win there, you win a station, it's about 3 to 4 times that, up to thousands of dollars. And then if you win the overall national competition, I mean, you win all kinds of prizes, and it's just not for you. Your company also wins things. I mean, just for example, Imperial Supplies, they sponsor the national competition. They also sponsor a station here in Colorado. But if you win the whole thing, they give your company all the stuff they need for a year.
That's a big deal. Yeah,
stop and think about all the butt connectors and all the fasteners and all that stuff that you would go through in a year, what that is for your company. Yeah. I mean, that's huge. And that's just one. I mean, there's 20 different stations in national competition. So you stop and think about all that stuff that's going to come your way if you were the grand champion, you know.
And your name. Your name gets out there, and you get to be one of the past champions, and what a big deal. So yeah, that's absolutely phenomenal to have a chance to go up, but also to compete at that level, and see the other competitors and get in there, and of course learn.
Learning is the biggest thing. That's what this is all about. It is competitions, bragging rights, stuff like that, but it's to get out there and learn, because the more you learn, the better we are as a mechanic, safer the industry's getting, and things like that, because it's growing so fast.
Well, and just like in our training, you get one-offs from these different companies, and I know for me, I always just kind of sit back and hope and pray that that one person's going to go back to their company and pass the good word that, hey, this is the right way to do this. Well, the same thing with this competition. We're going to be really pushing upon the correct ways to do some of these stations and how to handle this, and hopefully that they can take that back and become a shop lead within their own shop. So you're not only developing champions or potentially future champions, but where you have both the student category and the professional, you're developing future leaders in this industry. And I think it really is a phenomenal chance to get involved. So with that, how does one go and get registered now?
Just go to the Colorado Motor Carriers website, and there's a QR code. Scan it, sign right up, you're done.
So that's cmca.com. They have, when you click on events, you're going to find I think the very first one they've got on there right now is Top Techs.
Yep.
Yeah. Just click on that and use that QR code, get yourself or your team or whomever. There's 16 spots available, so don't miss an opportunity to get involved in that, to challenge yourself, and overall, better yourself and your
better
organization.
Your knowledge, and the one thing I forgot to say was we give away toolboxes at the state competition. So
I saw that you got a couple Cornwell
So
toolboxes.
we got top professional gets a Cornwell toolbox. Second place, Harbor Freight donated a rolling service cart. But it's the big, nice one.
Like the Icon type?
The Icon type stuff. And then the students, Matco, they get a toolbox from Matco. So we get all that stuff as well, So it's there, even though you didn't win, if you win it here at the national state competition, if you don't do great at the nationals, you still got something to take back to you and do whatever, And we give everybody a magnet that says competition year Top Tech that they put on their toolbox. So if you walk into a shop, somebody sees that, you can see how many years they've competed and what they've done and things like that, So you see a brand new toolbox with a Top Tech magnet on it, that, hey, that's the guy that did it,
Well, and it gives somebody drive, right, to go through. If you didn't win it this year, hey, you know what? Keep practicing, come back to it next year. Yeah. Just the benefit that you could give to your shop if you were to progress, go become a national champion in this stuff, the benefit that you're going to bring for both you and your shop is just astronomical. So definitely want to see people get involved.
Yeah, getting involved. And like I said, and if you don't want to get involved this year, just come out and be a spectator just to see what it is. And then you can understand what's going on. And then next year you come out, get involved, and be a competitor, and because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know what it is, I'm scared, kind of thing. Hey, come out. We don't mind you coming out and spending it. You can stay the whole day or just a couple hours, whatever works for you. Come out in the morning, have some breakfast with us, and before we get started, and then you can see what happens. Or midday, come out, see what's going on. We'd appreciate anybody who wants to come out and check it out.
And I would imagine if, you're a little nervous about participating and getting involved in the competition, I would imagine there's probably places where you could use some volunteers too.
Oh, volunteers. Yeah. I can't exceed that enough. Right now I'm looking, I need 110 volunteers and I'm at 75. So I still need 35 volunteers.
Okay.
So if anybody wants to come out and just volunteer and be a part of it, to help out doing things and stuff like that, be a judge, the chairman will teach you how to be a judge. While I take all the competitors for their 1 hour written test, they'll teach you how to be a judge. So don't feel like I don't know anything about this. The chairman, they have it set out where they can teach you how to be a judge within that first hour. And, and the chairman's always there at each station. So if you did get into a situation where you didn't know what to do, they're right there to answer any questions and help you out if you get stumbled on judging. So anybody that wants to come out. I mean, we need runners, runners to help pass out food at lunchtime, runners to help take this test to the scorer's table so we can have everything wrapped up in a fashion towards the end so we can get to that champion, crown them faster, get them out, get them home, enjoy the rest of their weekend.
So there's plenty of opportunities to get involved. So if somebody is interested, maybe you just want to check it out, definitely could use some volunteers and some stuff like that. Again, get registered right away. Reach out. So should they just reach out if you got somebody interested in volunteering? Is it best to probably just reach out to CMCA?
Same way.
Check that link. Yeah, definitely love to see y'all get involved, that kind of thing. So fantastic. Well, Lonnie, thank you so much for coming out today. This is kind of typically where we talk about our TAFO, our truck around and find out for the week. And I was, as we were kind of preparing to have you on today, I thought of a story. It's been a while ago now, but it kind of goes back to steer axle tires and those tire weights. So I kind of thought that this would be a good one. And Keith, you kind of brought it up with your point too, talking about those tires and the load rating. But basically what was going on was with the tire load ratings on steer axles, I was still with the enforcement when this toward the end of my career there.
Right.
But we had a situation where tandem axle dump trucks, a specific motor carrier here in the Denver metro area, they decided to go apparently a little cheaper on some steer axle tires on their tandems. So what they were running into is they claimed that it was coming from the dealerships this way. And Keith, you could probably speak more to that. I don't think it was your trucks. I definitely know it wasn't your trucks. It was that other one that starts with a K. I think you can figure it out from there. But these tandems were coming in. They were going across the scale, and every one of them was getting put out of service because when they, as you can't just adjust the weight on a dump truck type situation. So what they unfortunately, between trucking around and found out that you got to pay attention to the steer axle tires because every truck in their fleet, they somehow downgraded to a smaller tire, lower load rating tire, and then they were loading them up and they couldn't haul the weight. So, we kind of brought it up, but that's one of those ones that I just wanted to bring up. They make sure you're paying attention to those load ratings so that you are not overloading a tire because the enforcement officers, especially those with scales, around the Denver metros, you can bump into scales really anywhere you go.
Exactly.
And, out in about in the different parts of the states where you see them set up to do those inspections, if they weigh you and those tires are overloaded, you're going to be overloaded. And it's not just the tandem sits with the steer axle. I see it all the time with trailers. Somebody gets a 10,000 pound trailer to avoid CDL ratings, and then next thing you know, they're stacking big old machines on there. So it's like, hey, I've got a 35G Mini X, sitting back there. I'm like, well, that machine where it weighs 10,000 pounds. They're like, well, we got a 10,000 pound trailer. I'm like, well, that's the weight of the trailer. Plus the machine. And of course, the tires aren't designed to carry that weight. So pay attention to those tire load ratings.
Well,
and
to your point though, with the dump trucks,
yeah,
if they're not going to put load ratings on these anymore, how are they going to know?
Yeah.
Good point. It's a very good point. Yeah.
The guy can say, no,
Yeah.
they're good. Don't worry about it. They're brand new.
And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about that today, because I don't think any of us really have any idea with the way that they're wording that in paragraph J. I don't think any of us really know what to expect in the future with that. And so, Lonnie, I think you led off by saying I think it's a terrible mistake. And I guess we're going to find out. Yeah. So, not that the FMCSA would ever make a mistake.
No. They never do.
They're always right with every rule they ever come out with.
That's why that book just keeps growing every year, right?
100 years of DOT regulations, and this is what we're stuck with. Yeah. So, absolutely.
And the other thing we didn't talk about on those steer axle tires is speed rating.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The speed rating on them, I see it all the time.
And guys will ask me, but use 4 1/4 by 65 front tire. The big flotation tires you see, those have a speed rating of 65. So that's where I set them. And guys say, well, we'll open that up to 75, 80 or take the speed limiter off the truck. And it's like, you can do that. I cannot.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I'll get sued if you get in an accident or have a blowout or anything like that. And I know people, in very close to me that have big, like a Class A motor coach.
Yeah.
Well, those are 10,000 pound rated tires on that steer axle. Those carry a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're running 80, 85 miles an hour.
Yep.
Those are 65 mile an hour tires.
Yep.
And I know there has been one case where the steer tire blew. They were pulling a F-150 behind it too, and hit a guardrail on a bridge. And luckily, it just rode the guardrail all the way to the other end of the bridge.
Yeah.
Nobody got hurt.
Yeah.
That's the good news.
Yeah.
But they're like, oh, well, it was the tire's fault. It was all this and all that. And it's like, I know how they drive it.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Well, we had one accident here in Colorado a couple of years ago where they had the wrong speed rated steer tire and they blew and it went over the bridge and landed on a car, killed both of them.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just because they had the wrong speed rated tires. They were, he's running 75 on 470 and blew steer tire and right over the bridge and just happened to land on the road below and landed on a car. I mean,
those big, well, anything that has to have 10,000 pound rated, they shouldn't be going over 65 anyway.
Exactly.
I don't think.
Yeah.
But
They shouldn't, but unfortunately, these guys forget. They have this momentary brain lapse while they're driving, and I think they think that they're still in their personally owned vehicle, which is maybe a little bit more performance rated. But we're talking about the performance of a big rig. It might be able to perform pulling and hauling, but not maneuvering.
And the difference between shutting down a vehicle at 75 and shutting one down at 65 is almost double the distance. Especially when you get into any kind of weights. And I've tried to explain that to people. It's like, no. I know it's only 10 miles an hour more, but it takes you almost twice the distance to stop just because of that additional 10 miles an hour.
Yep.
That additional velocity. That's a big deal.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Fantastic. Well, Lonnie, you got any good tire stories from the past?
Oh, the biggest one is the speed rated ones.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. I mean, I've had companies come back and they're like, we got in trouble at the port because we didn't have the right speed rated tires and our ECM was not set at the right speed, and they got shut down and they couldn't understand why. They're like, hey, I got brand new tires. What the heck's going on? You know, but the problem is, it's like he said, they're running the big flotation tires. It was a shingle company that had the big crane on it and everything like that. So they got to have the big tires, and there's, 65, 68 mile an hour max.
Right.
And they're running 75 mile an hour, 76 mile an hour. And some of them their ECM wasn't even set.
Yeah.
And they got caught. And they just couldn't understand why they got caught. This is just don't make sense. You sold me the tire, why didn't you give me the right tire? I says, well, I gave you the right tire and I told you, hey, this is the speed rating on that tire. But, that's just like, whatever.
Most people don't care.
Yeah, because I'm going to run as fast as I can, because the most important thing for me is get more work done. The faster I get it done, the more work I can do, the more money I might be able to make, And they don't think about what the consequences are if something was to happen.
Yeah.
And that 10 miles an hour doesn't make even 10 minutes in their day.
Yeah. I mean, we've done surveys of 10 mile an hour more throughout a 9-hour day, and you save 18 minutes.
Yeah. It's nothing.
It's just not worth it.
Plus
the blood pressure goes up because you have to be that. Doesn't matter what vehicle you're in. If there's a space in front of you, all the cars want to take it. And if you're the bigger the truck you're in, the more cars are going to take it. It's just like turning on your turn signal. You turn on your turn signal, the next 20 cars behind you is like, oh, they all have to be in front of you. So you better plan at least a mile ahead, because eventually somebody might say, okay, you can go. But let's be honest, people are not aware of the room that CMV truly needs.
No.
So if you have a proper following distance, at least 100 cars are going to try to take that gap.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a thankless job, but
I mean, you figure the average stopping distance for a truck and trailer is over 450 feet.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you stop and think of how many cars can fit in 450 feet, that's how many cars are going to fill that gap.
Yeah.
And if you tried as a CDL driver to try to keep 450 feet, you're not going to get anywhere, because you're pretty much going to be stopped, especially if you're anywhere close to downtown Denver traffic and stuff like that. Because
it's so true.
They fill it.
And I when I talk to the driver, especially in my defensive driving, I tell them, if you're driving a speed limit or even just 1 or 2 mile an hour under the speed limit, it doesn't matter because you're going to get there at the same time. How many times, where you're driving the speed limit and 10 miles up the road, you're next to the guy that, was sitting there driving like an idiot, know? And so, you can see it time and time again. But the nice thing about just slowing down just a little bit is everybody will naturally help put a gap, though, because they want to be going faster than that. So that'll help you with your gaps. But it's a battle.
It's that flow of traffic. If you can be the one that creates the flow of traffic, everybody else will follow. But if you're the one trying to push it, they're all going to push that same volume of flow. That's the big thing.
That is so true.
So if you're the larger one, be the professional and make it be safe and let everybody follow your example.
So such good words. So Lonnie, for your training, what's the best way to book training with you?
downtimedefender@gmail.com.
Okay, so downtimedefender@gmail.com. We'll put that up with the links. I see Luke over there taking some notes on the Redbeard side of things. So we'll get that. Make sure we add that in there so people can get booked with you. And some of your classes, I'll have Luke get the fine tune information on some of your classes. So maybe we can help get you some trainings and stuff booked out there. But thank you for joining us today. I'd love to have you back. We got some good topics, and I can pick probably a couple dozen more that we could sit around and talk about and kick around.
Sounds good to me. I'd love to come back. I enjoyed it.
Appreciate it so much. Well, with that, I'm going to say that we had it. Keith, is there anything you want to throw in there?
You were talking about wheel ends.
Mm-hmm.
So years ago, we were hauling combines up into Alberta.
Yeah.
And there was a little cafe, a truck stop / cafe, giant picture window. I can't remember. It was up around Lethbridge. And somebody, cattle hauler, had gone by. And, of course, they run 85, 90 miles an hour. They're just flying all the time. One of a set of duals came off of a trailer. And I think those things generate.
They do.
Speed. They will pick up speed as they go.
Up to 4 times the speed that it was when it come off.
How does it do that?
It's just because it's got less resistance.
Yeah.
So when it's running at 60 mile an hour, once it gets out there, it has no resistance. And it just keeps gaining speed.
Yeah.
Is it kind of like the bounce effect where it hits and it launches?
Yep.
So
you get that
launch.
It'll
pass the truck.
Yeah.
And there were eyewitnesses. What happened was it passed the truck and kind of kept veering to the right. It went through a cafe, through a picture window.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, nobody got hurt.
Wow.
Thank God on
Some
that
minor cuts and abrasions from the big plate glass window.
Flying around, yeah.
But so you talk about a TAFO. That was, I got to see it shortly. The wheels were still sitting in the cafe when I saw it, but it was just like a missile.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've seen trucks come into our shops and they don't have no duals on the back. They're gone. They don't even realize they're gone. They pull in for another tire issue and you're like, well, what about this side? Do you need to, because it's on the passenger side and all he really sees is the driver's side. Oh my
gosh.
They pull in and he goes, I got a flat over here. And it's like, well, do you want to put tires on that side or what are you going to do? And there's like, huh?
Because you're going to need wheels too.
And you need wheels and everything. Yeah. They don't even realize it.
I saw one, I was coming west on 34, right there for West 10th Street, drops into 34.
Yeah.
And there was a roll-off truck. I won't mention the name of the company, but I know them well. And all of a sudden, I see a set of duals come down. And it went through the median, across the eastbound side, and off into the field where it died.
Yeah.
And didn't hit anybody, thank goodness. The guy did notice it and did pull over. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's pretty spooky stuff.
Yeah, it is. And I've had a company that they were running the wrong size tires and they were having wheel in, blowing out seals all the time and everything like that. And they come to me and they're like, what's going on? Why are we doing this? It's just constantly we're blowing out wheel seals and bearings are getting messed up. And it's like, well, it's almost like the steer axle, the wrong size tire for the wrong application, Put the right size tires on it, the right load capability. And now they're like, mechanics are like, I have nothing to do. I used to change wheel seals all the time and do it like the back of my hand. Well, now they don't have that problem. So there's a lot to learn.
Yeah. So good stuff. I was kind of out of my depth today because my knowledge of brakes is, you want disc or drum?
That's all right.
People says, I don't know. What should I get? And it's like, disc.
Exactly.
Because and what I hear is at DOT inspections, they see you have disc brakes, they just wave you on through.
Pretty much, yeah. And that's because there's, like I talked about earlier, it's hard to tell everything because it's all internal in that caliper now.
So that's why I didn't say a whole lot today.
That's all right. That's all right.
But the disc brakes help us stop faster.
They do.
And that's what we need.
And they don't fade.
They cool better too,
And
right?
they cool better.
So they handle the grades. They're the overall a more higher performance braking system.
Correct.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you foresee any potential future like they did with the automatic slack adjusters in 1994? Do you think we're eventually going to hit a drop dead date where they say everything manufactured from this date on needs to have disc brakes?
Yeah. I see that coming.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's in the near future because there's just so many trucks on the road that are still drums. And, it's like everybody else, when they complained, I'm sure, Keith, you've heard the complaint of, I don't want disc brakes on the front of my truck, but you have to.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a mindset to get everybody past that point. But I do think it's going to happen.
Well, I mean, once upon a time, all we saw was the old Dayton axles and spokes and
Missouri
split
wobblers.
rims and so
I mean, I can date myself, go back to when they were wedge brakes.
yeah.
It took a long time to get rid of those.
Yes, it did.
But we tried disc brakes in the early 70s, and they weren't built the way they should have been. We kind of jumped the gun too fast. So I think that put a bad taste in everybody's mouth as well. So I think that's why it'll take a little bit longer to get to the full disc brake. Yeah. But I think it's coming.
It's coming. Probably coming. Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. That was a good truck around and find out. I'm glad we got that in there. I like that topic. So perfect. Well, Lonnie, thank you again for coming in. Really appreciate you.
I appreciate it.
And I can't wait to have you back. This was a lot of fun talking about these topics. So perfect.
No, thank you. Anytime, man. If whatever comes up, man, just give me a holler. I'll come up and we'll do it again.
Perfect. Well, thanks for tuning in to the Truck Around and Find Out podcast. Be safe out there. Thanks for what you do, moving our freight, moving America forward. Keep your shiny side up, and we'll catch you on the next podcast.
God bless you guys.
Have a good day.